Harrison Price for Thursday, March 27th. So
it's getting on.
Going 2025. Yeah. Coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center in the show presentation of Bet365. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price. Nice to see you here in the flesh. 4-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things.
Good to be back.
Good to have you back.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, remains to be seen. We'll see.
The Vancouver Canucks stay in this playoff race. Another chips are down must-win victory for the Vancouver Canucks. More on that in a moment. We start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Will Thatcher Demko save the Canucks season? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels.
He certainly gives him the best chance to do so because is great, and we'll point to the depth and all other factors that came into the victory last night. None of those factors get a chance to help out for the 2 points without Demko. He's one save. He's only got one save on the board through the first 4 minutes of the game, but it's a 5-alarmer, and he adds a couple more before the halfway mark of the hockey game. At which point it's still a very tight contest. So I don't think the depth, I don't think Derek Forbort, otherwise known as Bobby Orr, get to be involved in the contest if it's already 3-0 Canucks. Like, I think it just unfolds a lot differently at that point. Mm-hmm. So goaltending certainly, and quite possibly Thatcher Demko on his own, yes, can save this season.
I voted yes. I've seen enough to believe that Thatcher Demko is back at his Vezina finalist level. We talked about it yesterday. He was very good before he got hurt and had to sit down again. He's been very good since he's come back. We know that the offense has been a challenge. I mean, it was a challenge with Paterson, Chytil, and Höglander. It's remains a challenge, although one they are meeting in recent games. And the other thing, Blake, this is, even by Vancouver Canucks standards, which are quite high or low, depending on how you want to define them, it has been such a crazy season of storylines and narratives and things that haven't made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Demko going on a heater down the stretch to will this team into the final playoff spot? Yeah. I could see one more crazy twist, crazy storyline coming up here before we pack it in for the regular season.
He has performances to
as
give.
The world turns sort of season for the Vancouver Canucks. And yeah, he's been sensational. And if you get goaltending like that, they've got enough offense. They can get that across the line.
The main worry coming out of last season was regression because the offense was just too good in that first half of the season. Well, the reverse can be true. You can regress to the mean from the back as well. And Demko has all of that room. He's only played 19 games. He's only started 19 games. He is merely 8-6-3. That is not the winning percentage that we are used to seeing from Thatcher Demko. His save percentage is merely .892, nowhere near what we are used to seeing out of Thatcher Demko. So Thatcher Demko now regressing to the mean, progressing to the mean, means that's a hell of a heater. If he can get back to Thatcher Demko norms here, get his save percentage back above 900 here in short order, it means the Canucks are winning a bunch of those hockey games.
The daily poll question is a presentation of Surrey Mitsubishi, and how about this? On the first day where we start this new campaign and promotion, 5 goals last night, which means, that's the max, which means you can get $2,500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle at Surrey Mitsubishi. That is good today. That is good to the next game day. So get on in there today or tomorrow morning.
I'm so sorry, Daniel.
Go see our friends, Daniel, Arash and Company. Mention Sakaris and Price and tell them you want that $2,500 off thanks to 5 goals on a new or pre-owned vehicle. Score more, save more, more value, more savings. Bring them any offer. Surrey Mitsubishi will beat it. Visit 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey.
I told Daniel, don't worry about it. The most they ever score is like 2-3 goals.
Yeah.
So you won't have to give steep discounts.
I said to Daniel, I'm like, do we want to cap it at a certain number of goals? Because, like, theoretically, they could score 8 goals. It's $4K.
Theoretically.
And then we went, 5 goals. Chances of 5 goals.
As if.
There you go. Right out of the box. Top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Canucks keep living. 5-2. They win at the New York Islanders to stay in the playoff race. Even got a little bit of a breath in the third period, as you were calling for yesterday, huh? Be nice to have a stress-free third period, right? A tap-in par as opposed to that tricky 5-footer downhill.
And it, for a while, it looked like it was going to also be, remember, we also said, hey, maybe goaltending can give them a multi-goal lead, and that also came true. So a lot of the stuff that we called for on yesterday's show, it ended up happening. And yes, wasn't that nice to be the empty net scoring team rather than the victim of one? Wasn't that nice to not need a last-minute goal to extract points out of a game? I won't say that they were rotating all 4 lines. There were still guys at the bottom end of the minute scale. But it just, it frays the nerves playing that way, living that life all the time.
Well, it was 3 straight games where they scored in the final 5 minutes to forge a tie. Teddy Bluger's 4-2 goal 1 minute into the third period last night gives them some margin after really a lackluster opening 40 minutes. That was the first 4-2 was the first multi-goal lead or deficit of the trip, notwithstanding the empty netter JT Miller potted on Broadway Saturday against the Rangers. Demko outstanding early against terrific chances. Vancouver is outshot 10-5 in the first period, give up 11 more shots in the second period. But here's the role that Demko is on, and again, this is truncated by the fact that he had to leave that game in Toronto before the Four Nations break, so we're going back almost a couple months here. But last 5 games, he's 4-0. And the only one he didn't win was the decision in Toronto versus the Leafs. 6 goals
didn't
against.
Lose that one either. They actually won that game.
They won the game.
Yeah.
142 goals against, average off 949 save percentage, plus a shutout. He's back. He's rolling. Sherwood, Kiefer, a 2-goal, 3-point night, 4 shots on goal, 10 shot attempts, 4 hits. I mean, he's good for 4 hits every. You pencil him in for 4+ hits every. He's +3, 1543. He plays playoff style game. Tocchet talked about this going into last night. It's a team that's comfortable in a 1-1 game. They don't score a whole lot. In fact, they have a lot of similarities to the Vancouver Canucks. And those teams tend to play less space, low scoring, tight checking playoff style games. And Sherwood, going back to the game last week in St. Louis and last night, terrific in those style games. Would have liked him to be better against the Rangers in Jersey, but he's got 17 goals. Can he get to 20?
I was thinking that. And
Bluger's got 8. Can he get to 10?
I think both those guys can reach those milestones, yes. Mm-hmm. I think they can. I think those are important ones for this team down the stretch where they're going to need committee goal scoring. And I don't think that they are crazy to suggest. Hey, especially if you get a 1-goal, 1 empty netter performance, like that can fill the gap almost in and of itself. So at this point, I would challenge, and we've already heard Rick Tocchet bristle at the hits record. Bristle at the hits. in general, that maybe he's gone out of his way all season long to get some of these hits. Should Rick Tocchet go up to him and say, hey, you want to concentrate on a stat? Get to 20 goals. Challenge the guy.
Yes, love it.
You set a high water mark in one way. Let's see you do it in another way. And he's already on a career high. But, it is a nice platform to get to, nice milestone to get to, 20 goals. And on a season where, the point total for the leader is going to be a pretty modest total. For the forward leader at the very least. The Canucks could round out a pretty decent grouping of 20 goal scorers by the end of the season. Especially if Paterson happens to get back and gets a little hot himself. Quinn Hughes is an outside shot.
Farhan just texted me, is there a show today? Why wouldn't there be a show today? I'm glad he's seeking it. Mike, do we have any publishing problems going on right now?
He says he couldn't see it on Twitter, but it's there.
It's on Twitter.
It's there. Yeah.
It's definitely
okay.
on Twitter.
Maybe we're getting shadow banned. Everybody is these days. It's all the rage.
Well, here are your goal scorers last night. Kiefer Sherwood with 2, Teddy Bluger, Atu Ratu, and Derek Forbort, just like you draw it up.
Yep. Yeah.
And look, depth scoring is going to be important. Coach was saying so after the victory last night. Here's Tocchet.
A couple of nice shot pass goals, which is nice to see. A different way of scoring. Depth scoring helps, right? Schurzy getting a couple. Like I said, Forsey. So at this time of the year, especially with our team right now, we need depth scoring. So we need everybody to contribute.
Yeah, he's 100% right. Shot pass goals.
Schurzy
and Forbesy.
Is Jake DeBrusk Debsy? Debris?
My favorite NHL nickname of all time is former Canucks defenseman Brad Ferentz with the Florida Panthers. Nickname Bitsy. So we go, why is he Bitsy? Because he's so bitter. Atu Ratu with a game-tying goal makes it 2-2 in the second period. He's a very effective forecheck on the opening goal of the game for the Vancouver Canucks by Kiefer Sherwood. In fact, Canucks, and we've been looking at this, very good in terms of puck retrieval on the uncontrolled entries, namely the dump and chase, the chip and chase. Got 11 of 33 last night, 33%. That's very good when you're surrendering possession of the scoring instrument at the blue line or over the red line.
They're looking more
and
fast.
are able to retrieve it. Exactly. They're getting in on
more
pucks.
Determined.
Getting behind the defense. Absolutely. And I still believe they waited too late in terms of calling Atu Ratu up. He gives you better face-offs, better offensive capacity than Nils Höglander does. I know Oman's a big body, but Ratu to me just sort of plays bigger. Question for you. So I think there's no question he's an NHLer next year, right? A full-time NHLer.
You have to give them the chance, yes.
Yeah. Something would have to go dreadfully wrong for Atu Ratu not to break camp next year as a Vancouver Canuck. Is that at 4C or is that at 3C? Pius Suter leaves for greener pastures.
I think you make an effort to bring back Pius Suter for sure. Hey, depth is not a terrible thing. We know that Suter can play on the wing too, so those two could play together ostensibly.
But I guess what I'm asking is, do you feel confident enough in Ratu that you have a price on Suter, and if it isn't doable for him, you walk believing you have the in-house replacement?
At this point, I think Suter's production is of such where that's not quite a black and white statement that I'm willing to make.
I'm not there yet either. He does have 10 games left and perhaps some playoffs as well. But I'm feeling better and better about Ratu as fourth-line centerman next year if you can bring Suter back and fill that elusive
Hey, Suter's or
2C spot.
Ratu's not playing with Brett Hull on his wing here right now. But all that said, I think I would like to see a little bit of offense from him down the stretch. Great that he scored last night. I don't want that to be the last time we see him on the score sheet. I would love to be heartened by some optimism towards next season that he can be there offensively.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to point for point, goal for goal replace Pius Suter. That's not probable. But I would like to dream, if I'm Rick Tocchet in the management group, I'd like to dream that he could be 70% of what Suter gives you offensively. Yeah.
I think that's fair.
But I think you need to be tempted into that. You need to be persuaded. So a little bit, a little dabble here, dabble there of offense from Ratu here in the last 10 games would be nice.
And, of course, could play some AHL playoff games as well, depending on, and, of course, we'll need a big summer. Getting close to big summer time of year.
Yeah, he's younger than everybody might think, given that he got games early.
Quite young.
He's just 22.
And he's talked about improving his skating, and he does work with a skating coach in the off season. He's talked about how sometimes it doesn't come naturally yet in a game, the work on his stride and all the mechanics of the skating, but give him another summer. And I think we're looking at a pretty useful hockey player here, NHL player, going forward. And here he is, talking about scoring against his former team.
2 wins huge, but haven't scored that many in this league. I was thinking about before the game if it's fine if I celebrate, but that moment just did what it felt right. And I obviously loved playing for the Islanders, but nice to play against them.
Soccer mentality. He thought, if I'm playing my old team in soccer, you can't celebrate against your old team.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
It's so dumb.
it's so dumb.
First of all, son, celebrate.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
Hey, who cares if it's your old team?
So we lose sight of this. It's supposed to be fun. You're getting paid a lot of money to play a child's game. There should be joy. People are spending a lot of money to watch you play that child's game live. They deserve some joy. People are investing their time to sit down and watch you on television. They also want fun.
You're also not Gretzky going back into Edmonton.
Exactly.
You played 12 games
But
there.
what I love there is he was thinking about scoring a goal.
Yeah, he was.
That he was visualizing it. Lineup spot secure right now with the Canucks running 12 forwards and needing center icemen. And Ratu was sitting around the hotel last night thinking about scoring. Love it. Absolutely.
And I also think some of the old school, and again, there are elements of old school still stuck in Rick Tocchet and his management group. I bet you they like that he was even thinking about what's right.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, and we were talking about before the show. For a young Finn, the Finns aren't typically as proficient in English early on as the Swedes. His English is fantastic. It's barely accented.
Yeah.
And you can tell he speaks with confidence in English, too. So, there's a lot of things about Aatu Ratu's development that have been good this year, and frankly, there's been a lot of things about the Vancouver Canucks, development-wise, that have been good. There's 13 players, Blake, have played for both the Abbey and the Vancouver Canucks this year.
I would love him to get the Bo Horvat skating bump.
Oh, but you want to give that skating bump to everybody.
Well,
like
you
Brock
do.
Besser, that was extraordinary.
And he's not going to turn into Bo Horvat at all, but he is a certified middle six center if he can add a half a step.
And Gilman talked to us about it yesterday, that what they saw and their sort of biomechanical analysis of Bo Horvat as a junior player with the London Knights, they felt like this guy was going to be an improved skater going forward. And he mentioned NHL teams have that capacity now. So, and of course, many teams have skating coaches that come on in. And I think if Ratu sticks to the program this summer in terms of improving the skating, that will be the next step in his development and the one that's going to get him firmly in the National Hockey League, where he doesn't see the AHL again. Derek Forbort is taking Rick Tocchet's advice about getting more aggressive and trying to score more goals off the rush or the mini rush. He's taken that to heart. The saucer pass from deep in the corner on Monday against the Devils to set up Lekkerimäki's goal. Then he runs the channel and scores the game-winning goal on a DeBrusk pass. Incidentally, fantastic play and pass by Pius Suter earlier in that sequence, the second assist to create that cross-ice opportunity. Second goal in 10 games after breaking an 80-game goalless drought for Derek Forbort. Adam Foote has called him a sneaky offensive player. Rick Tocchet has lauded his calmness and his leadership. And Blake saw a stat today. He is the least scored on player in the National Hockey League shorthanded.
Yeah.
This from a guy who early in the season lost his father in and out of the lineup. There was a period of time there where he looked like he was going down Vinny Desharnais Boulevard. Okay, free agent signing that didn't work out. Big defenseman who can't really hang. All right. Got to improve on that spot. He's now become an invaluable piece on this Canucks team.
And this was the reporting. Again, I've mentioned, I made some calls there after they signed him. What is this player? Boston loved this guy.
Yeah.
He was in and out of the lineup there too because of injury. But they said, A, the PK, different beast when he was in or out. And B, beloved by teammates and sneaky contributions, and that's what he's given.
I think one of the things that Derek Forbort has suffered from in his NHL career and in his perceptions of him as an NHL player is that this was a 15th overall pick from the LA Kings who went to North Dakota, right? Like really high hockey pedigree. I mean, North Dakota was a juggernaut program back then, being a top half of the top round pick. Okay, so he didn't turn out to be that all-around defenseman who scores as well as defense at 6'4" and 215 pounds. But he's turned himself into a very serviceable NHL player with what he's able to do on the defensive side.
He was good enough to get ID'd and put into the U.S. national team program. That's where he played out of before North Dakota. So he was identified early.
Yeah. So, I mean, he touched them all, really, in terms of the elite development programs in the United States at the time. And, has been, as I say, invaluable to the Canucks. Pius Suter with the 2-point night. Drew O'Connor assists on both those third period.
He was moving.
Goals.
Motor was running.
Yeah, well, like his motor. He's come as advertised, too, from Pittsburgh. Vancouver now 3 back of the St. Louis Blues with a game in hand. 1 up on the Calgary Flames, who have 2 games in hand on the Canucks, 3 on St. Louis. They are 2-1-1 on this road trip. They are 5-2-1 in their last 8 games. And this pattern of Canucks game and then scoreboard watch continues. St. Louis at the Nashville Predators tonight, third time they've played in the last 10 days. Dallas at the Calgary Flames, so a big boy coming into the Saddle Dome. We'll see how the Flames handle that. Pretty much do or die now for the Utah Hockey Club. They're in Tampa. They've lost some ground, some distance to the playoff pack, so not much, if any, margin for error left for Utah. And we started mentioning this yesterday. There is a pretty fair chance that the St. Louis Blues are going to catch the Minnesota Wild, or that we'll be talking more about the Minnesota Wild in this playoff wild card chase. They host Washington and Alex Ovechkin, top team in the East tonight. So, I mean, you're really pulling for the Predators to rise up and get one here. I mean, this would be St. Louis beating them 3 times in a row over what is now a 7-game winning streak. Could be 8 if they win it tonight. I think you got to feel good about Dallas being the Flames opponent, about Tampa being the Utah opponent, and about Washington being the Wild opponent.
Washington's equally as hot as the St. Louis Blues are right now. If they beat the Minnesota Wild, the Canucks would have a game in hand.
And a game remaining against the Wild.
And
that's
a game
very important.
remaining.
That's very important because that's a 4-point swing.
Yeah. So that could be 4 points right there.
Yeah. Now, the problem the Canucks have with the Wild is that Minnesota is 6 regulation wins up. So you can't just tie them.
No.
You got to pass them.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. But, and we should mention this too, now tied with Calgary in regulation wins at 26, 2 back of the St. Louis Blues. So 6 is probably unattainable. You're going to have to pass them in points. But the other 2 head-to-head direct competitors,
if you stay out of overtime, you're doing
that's
okay.
Right. Put away some of these games, and next week you're home here to some very beatable opponents. We talked about you got Seattle and Anaheim, and then you got a Vegas team that may or may not have a lot to play for, depending on how the Pacific Division is going. At the top, I mean, Vegas has won 4 in a row. They're 5 points up on the Kings, who have won 4 in a row. LA with a game in hand. But, Vancouver has Vegas twice more, both times at home, to end the season, April 6th and April 16th. There is a world where Vegas is a little home and free in either the last one or both of those games. In fact, it's the final game of the regular season for Vancouver, home to Vegas on April 16th. What are our friends at the breweries up to? Beautiful day like this, I could see myself on the patio with the neighborhood.
Well, they're going to make it really easy because the Chase My Tails are on special right now for the month of March. March is coming to a close, though, so get them while you can. This is the 12-pack regular cans on special. Chase it down at your favorite private or government liquor store.
Tomorrow in Columbus for the Vancouver Canucks. They're practicing in Columbus today. Tocchet said after the game that Kevin Lankinen is ready. He just wanted to give him more rest. That's why he did not back up last night, but hinted strongly that Lankinen is going to play one of the next 2. We have seen him at practice today.
I think somebody had mentioned that, but I haven't seen.
Not a lot of eyes on this practice.
Exactly.
Okay, so question. Demko tomorrow in Columbus with Lankinen and the early start in Winnipeg on Sunday. Is that how you see them slicing this up, or do you want to give Thatcher some rest here and play him against the better team on Sunday? It's a noon start.
You need to check the fuel gauge of both of the goalkeepers. So you talk to Lankinen. Are you fully fit, fully non-sick, all of that? Okay. And then you get the answer from the red-hot Thatcher Demko. Where are you feeling right now? You're getting one of these 2. Which one feels better for you? And I think you could maybe even put it in Demko's hands. Say, we're only playing, one of these 2. If you feel like 1,000% and want to keep this going, then you can play the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think after playing back-to-back for the first time after playing nothing, and you want to refuel a little bit for the next game, let's do that.
100% agree. That this should basically be Thatcher Demko's call. Which one do you want?
And not opponent-wise. Again, fuel gauge-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he might see this as an opportunity. I'll take some rest and go toe-to-toe with Connor Hellebuck.
Hey, would love the
and I don't mind that. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, the Canucks just pulled one over on the Winnipeg Jets not too long ago, which will be in their memory banks. The best path to victory for the Canucks in that game is probably going to be one of the goalies standing on their heads.
It was 6-2 on March 18th, and your starting and winning goaltender that night was Kevin Lankinen, who needed just 20 saves on 22 shots.
That was one of their easiest games of the second half of the season, strangely.
Really was. Mm-hmm. So
the Jets will be better. The only way you're getting another win on the Jets is by a goalie stealing 2 points.
Ex-Vancouver Canucks coach John Tortorella is out in Philadelphia. The Flyers were going to make a coaching decision at the end of the year, but Torts put his foot in his mouth this week after a loss in Toronto. Quote, "I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now." He did go on to say, "It's on me. I got to get better. I got to adapt." But apparently that comment, as well as some comments behind the scenes to Flyers management, had them move early. Daniel Briere, Keith Jones make the move to release Torts Former Canucks assistant Brad Shaw has taken over as the interim head coach there. And, of course, there are rumors now about Canucks head coach Rick Tocchet going home, so to speak, where he forged his reputation as a fierce.
Are they rumors, or is it just dot
winger.
connecting?
Well, you told me Andy Strickland in St. Louis is.
Well, again, the way his wording is,
Okay.
It's unclear if that's a rumor that he's hearing or if it's just dot connecting.
Mm-hmm. Of course, another situation to monitor, also in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, former Canucks assistant coach Mike Sullivan. Is he going to be out after another season ends prior to the playoffs for the Penguins? Tocchet played and coached there as well. Pierre LeBrun says that the Canucks are desperate to re-sign Rick Tocchet and that Tocchet wants to wait. It's curious. LeBrun also reports that Rick Tocchet is the only head coach in the NHL this year without a contract for next year. There's an option there, a mutual option. Of course, both sides would have to agree on the option, but it sounds like the Canucks. And when we say Canucks, I think that's Patrick Allvin, because he has talked about this several times where he's said hopefully sooner rather than later we get his name on a contract. And so the ball appears to be in Rick Tocchet's court. You are doubtful that he would have interest in Philadelphia because that's a rebuild job. I mean, that's a couple of years where you're not going to win a lot of games, and this is coming on after a couple of years where they have not won a ton of games.
I mean, take all this for what it is, but you're further back on the return to greatness scale in Philadelphia. You might say, hey, I see a path to them leapfrogging the Canucks in 2 years. Somebody would have to convince me of that, but still, as of next year, I still would be quite confident in saying you are further back than you are with the Vancouver Canucks. Secondly, just as a human being, based on the lifestyle that I seem to think that Rick Tocchet enjoys, that is far more West Coast golfing, proximity to the desert in the off season, all that sort of like he seems far more of that than urban Philadelphia living.
Yeah. He grew up in Scarborough. He knows Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're a kid.
But he's been there and done that, and I think he's moved past that here in
we'll see.
Post-coaching days, or post-playing days, I mean.
Yeah. The names out there, Joel Quenneville, who apparently has been reinstated now, David Carl, who led the United States, all this World Junior success. A couple of names to monitor there in Philadelphia. Flyers, Bruins, Blackhawks, all rocking interim coaches right now. And the Buffalo Sabres with Lindy Ruff, where it's been a disastrous season. They met season ticket holders yesterday. Lindy Ruff took full responsibility for the 13-game winless streak. And the New York Rangers with Peter Laviolette, who go from President's Trophy winners to a team that right now is on the outside of the playoffs looking in as well, could also be openings this NHL offseason. Tom Willander, Canucks first-round pick, defenseman, Boston University, is in action as we speak against Ohio State University in Toledo, the opening game of the NCAA ice hockey bracket. Our buddy Cam Robinson, and he mentioned this to us on Tuesday, saying he's told negotiations between the Canucks and Willander are ramping up.
Very tight game. I think game right now. It's anybody's game, right in the middle of the game right now. So
is it 1-1?
3-3.
Okay.
3 goals in the last 42 seconds.
Wow. So, look, I think he's going to sign very shortly after his final game, whether that's tonight.
There's nothing to negotiate.
Whether that's Saturday. Well, the only thing that, is he going to burn the year of the ELC this year, or is he happy to have? And there are some advantages to players for not burning the year of the ELC, right? Like when you burn the year of the ELC, then suddenly you get to that
it's a shorter runway.
Exactly. Yeah. Where you may not have enough time and games to be able to get the big extension coming out of the ELC.
Back in the old days where bridges were a fait accompli. You always had the bridge. Then yes, the burn was nice. Now we are seeing standout players go from your ELC to a big boy contract. And so if you think you're that guy, you want to make sure you set yourself up for that. Putting the pressure on yourself to accomplish that feat in 2 years is especially for a not prolific point getter.
That's it, Blake Price. When you are a defenseman, and let's face it, I would suspect that Tom Willander is going to be a defensive defenseman here at the beginning of his career for the Vancouver Canucks, because he ain't seeing the power play with Quinn Hughes here and with Filip Chytil as the primary fill-in if Hughes misses time. So I don't think he's going to be put in a position to be more than a 20, 30-point guy in the early going. And I mean, he's not the most dynamic offensive player to begin with anyways. For those who thought the Vancouver Canucks reached a little in taking him where they took him high in the first round a couple of years ago, you know, the charge there was Vancouver is so devoid of right shot defensemen. It is the scarcest commodity in the NHL. This guy, while he may not have the offensive, he's not a dynamic offensive player, profiles as a top four right shot defenseman because of the way he skates, because of the way he defends, because of the fact that he can play in all situations. But, you know, typically defensemen who get selected that high these days are the sort of trap breaker, the guys who can skate the puck through all three zones, who can attack, play the power play, score goals, set up goals. Willander, not quite that.
I still think
at least not early on here in the NHL. One would not suspect that.
He won't be the power play guy. He's played with the Hudson brothers in his time. You know, those are the guys getting the power play time. So I think he is not going to be a point getter, but I think it's also way too early to suggest he can't be a 40-point guy in his prime. I think that's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm just saying I would be very surprised if in his first, second, or third NHL season we're talking about Tom Willander having a case for the massive contract extension coming out of the ELC.
And if he gives himself the third year, though, can he have a 35-point, like kind of a look what I can be now? That third year gives you that possibility.
I think that's far more likely than him building a case in 2 years plus however many games, if he gets any games. More on that later.
Yeah.
This year. Mark your calendars, everybody. Thursday, April 10th. Vancouver has a big one against Colorado, and Canucks Army, RinkWide Vancouver, Harrison Price, we're throwing a party at Greta. Doors open at 5, game is at 6. It's all presented by Fountain Tire. Come watch the game, eat great food, play the arcade games. Exciting giveaways, a 50-50 draw in support of Kids Sport Vancouver. General admission tickets, $10. Or snag a VIP ticket for $40. That includes a burger, a beer, and a game card for that arcade. Must be 18 plus to attend. Secure your spot now. Canucks Army Watch Party at Greta, April 10th. Tickets, go to nationgear.ca.
That's the setup game to that head-to-head with Minnesota. So if Minnesota does continue its free fall, you know, that's sort of, if they win that one, you get the feeling that would set up a bigger game the following one. So it should be a lot of fun.
J-Pat joins us here. We go through everything that happened last night against the Islanders, and then Patrick Johnston in studio today, and we take on a lot of the issues with the Vancouver Canucks on the coaching side of things, on the injuries, on Demko, and beyond. That's all coming up here. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. I was not a winner last night. I had a Bo Horvat goal, and it was Casey Cizikas and Tony DeAngelo for the Islanders.
I had 2 assists for Quinn Hughes, got the one.
So missed it. Yeah. I'm going back to the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
And some upsets I like for tomorrow's games, already on Arizona plus the points tonight. Purdue is the only team in the tournament with 5 starters who have played only at Purdue. Every other school relies on transfers to some degree. Now, that experience, and more importantly, that experience of playing together, I think should serve them well in a big high-stakes game. Of course, they are the national runner-up from last year with Zach Edey, where they fell in the title game. So I'm taking Purdue +8 against the number 1 seed Houston. I'm going to put a smaller bet there on Purdue on the money line as well, because I do think they can win the game. So a smaller bet on the money line there at +325. And then I'm going to take Mississippi to beat Michigan State at +145. Mississippi has 6 guys who average in double figures. Michigan State, classic Tom Izzo team. They got great role players. They're tough. They rebound. They defend. They don't have a lot of scoring. In fact, they're relying on, remember Jason Richardson of the NBA, high flyer? Mm-hmm. His kid is their top scorer, but he's a freshman. So Ole Miss to win at +145, Purdue +8 with a smaller on the money line, Purdue at +325.
I'll turn to the Whitecaps today because I'll look at the Canucks tomorrow. And they are still a little bit shorthanded with a couple of playmakers, needless to say, and goal scorers in the case of Ryan Gauld, gone. So who's going to create the offense? Brian White will be back. You could see him starting, despite the fabulous Daniel Rios goal the other night. I think Brian White starts, but who's going to be providing the service? I think Ahmed is reasonable if he gets the start. But Jaden Nelson has 5 assists in all competitions this season for the Whitecaps. All I need is one from him. One more. A Jaden Nelson assist +500.
Wow, that's a lot. And you won on the Rios goal on the weekend. Great shout. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, every suspenseful minute in between. Amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use code NATION to get in on the game. That's code NATION. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Jeff Paterson coming up next. It's Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And this segment, a presentation of your Pacific Toyota dealers who would love you to experience what so many have already, and that is the magic of their brand new electric vehicle, the all-electric BZ4X. Go to your nearest Pacific Toyota dealer today and just ask for a test drive. Sit in that cockpit. It's not a quote-unquote sports car by definition, I wouldn't think, but it drives like one. It is a lot of fun, lots of room in the back for golf clubs and whatever other equipment you want to throw back there. And, of course, being 100% electric, you're living in the HOV line. You're passing the gas stations. Get up to $6,500 in rebates as well right now, plus 3.29% APR financing for 36 months. ShopToyota.ca. Go take it for a test drive.
Jeff Paterson is our Canucks reporter, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. He joins us now. And Jeff, an undermanned team, missing Paterson, missing Chytil, missing Höglander. All these must-win games. They're alive, man. They're still alive. Your thoughts on the effort and the heart demonstrated by the Vancouver Canucks last night?
Yeah, well, they're in business. But, Matt, you and I are they can't score goals.com. The shirts aren't flying off the shelf these days.
No. Backlog of inventory.
And good on them, because it was a grind there as recently as a couple of weeks ago. And all of a sudden, they're getting that extra goal that they need. And Rick Tocchet has been big on his moments. And you think of the road trip right out of the Four Nations where they didn't score a third-period goal. They were in all those games, and they couldn't generate a single third-period goal. And all of a sudden, they can't be stopped in third periods now. They've got 9 goals in the first 4 games of this road trip in the final frame. And of course, 2 of them buzzer beaters to force the game to overtime, to allow them to collect points. And it wasn't overtime, but late in that second period, Derek Forbort scoring. I mean, the fact Derek Forbort is scoring off the rush is one thing, but timing was huge too. And then Teddy Bluger extending that lead early in the third. I mean, those were massive turning points in the hockey game. Obviously, Thatcher Demko making the saves that he did early, particularly off Bo Horvat. So, we sort of use the phrase loosely about next man up, but really, I mean, that's what the victory over the Islanders was, because rare has been the night where Quinn Hughes has really struggled. And I thought, I mean, the turnover on what led to the shorthanded goal, he just can't make that play, and I'm sure he knows it. But they win usually because of Quinn Hughes, and last night they almost won in spite of Quinn Hughes, which, again, is an oddity for this hockey club. But, credit to them. They realize that the teams around them aren't giving an inch, and they're doing their part here, picking up points in 3 of the first 4 games. So, was it a perfect effort? No, but this is not a perfect hockey club, and certainly with the players missing from the lineup, full credit to the guys that were in uniform for finding a way to get the job done.
Yeah, not often you see him as one of only a few Canucks in the minus category, and they win the game.
That was Exhibit A on trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. Like he was forcing the issue and coughed it up.
But here's the thing: for my money, I would prefer him try to do too much right now than someone else try to do anything. Jeff, our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question today: will Thatcher Demko save the Canucks season? A thought or two on the goaltender.
He's looked really good, and I know it's been interrupted by injury in the Four Nations, but I was a little surprised as I looked back last night, and I tweeted out the fact that he's won his last 4 decisions. There was the no decision when he took himself out of the game in Toronto, but beyond that, it's the goals against, the save percentage. He is sort of looking like he has found that form again from that week leading into the Four Nations break, where he finally had dialed it in and looked like a Vezina candidate again. The 2 previous times this year, guys, when he's come back from injury, he's lost his first 2 decisions. It's taken him a little while to find his form here. The other night against the Devils, there were certainly moments, and then in overtime made that huge save on Paul Cotter. But I just thought, what a boost to the Canucks. The way he sort of planted his flag early in the hockey game, making key stops. If the Islanders get off to the start they're desperate for every point. They feel that, they kind of were hosed the other night. They thought they had a win over Columbus and didn't get it, and then ultimately lost in a shootout. So you knew that they were going to be fired up to try to get things right. And they came out and outshot the Canucks 10-5 in the first period, and Thatcher Demko up to the challenge on every occasion there. So you've heard the players after the games, and they try to couch their responses being complimentary to Kevin Lankinen and everything that he's done, but there is a sense in that locker room that Thatcher Demko can get it to another level that Lankinen can't. And I think most people that watch Thatcher Demko over his career probably agree that his ceiling is higher than Kevin Lankinen's. The question is workload and availability. And so 2 for 2 on that front in coming back and playing and getting through these games, and the fact that they're spaced out here allows him a day to recover and all those types of things. Kind of curious, and I know Rick Tocchet addressed it after the game, but with the stakes as high as they are, if Demko had to take himself out of a game here at some point, as he's done twice already this season, they've got Artur Silovs sitting there on the bench as the backup, which made me wonder, is Lankinen truly banged up and unavailable? So that was curious to me a little bit, but you heard Tocchet after the game say no, that it was sort of precautionary, but still playing with a little bit of fire there. But the best news of all is that Thatcher Demko managed to get through the game. He's looking really good. Can he ride in on his white horse and save this season? It's still a massive ask for this hockey club. And, of course, they got quick turnaround here from Friday night to Sunday afternoon. I would have to think that you'll see 2 different goaltenders. But in the short term, I would think you probably ride the hot hand and come right back with Thatcher Demko on Friday in Columbus.
The thing is, you can't ask him to play like that every single night. Why do you think they abandoned the defensive play that has been so good for much of this season last night? Was it because they knew that they needed the depth scoring, that they needed to abandon some of their posts a little bit in order to score the goals that they needed, and just said, you're going to face 6 2-on-1s tonight? And you're going to have to do your very best. And we're not going to defend them very well. Since Quinn Hughes has, by the way, admonished himself for the way he generally plays 2-on-1s, look at the way he plays one-on-ones. He's very bad at them. But do they need to abandon some defensive play in order to score the requisite amount of goals to get wins right now?
I'm not sure that there's a full correlation there. I mean, let's be upfront and honest that Ilya Sorokin was terrible last night, right? Mm-hmm. And the Canucks don't have to apologize for that.
No.
This is something that we're seeing around the National Hockey League, and the Canucks guys have been guilty of it as well with the way that they rolled Kevin Lankinen up until the past weekend. But the Islanders, Semyon Varlamov was injured early in the season. It's clear that they don't have trust in the guys that they've got behind Sorokin, so they're running him into the ground. Yeah, Igor Shesterkin of the Rangers, I think, has played something like 15 of the last 17 there. Utah, Connor Ingram back in the player assistance program, and Utah running with one goaltender. At this late stage of the season, all these teams are in and around the playoff bar, and it just seems like such a flawed strategy. As much as you recognize that, yes, your number one guy delivers the best chance, the more you play them, they're all human. Eventually, they're going to run into a tough night, and I think that's what happened to Sorokin last night. So the Canucks were certainly, they took advantage of it. The Forbort goal was not a great goal, certainly in the moment, and Teddy Bluger's probably a more stoppable one, but whatever. They found their way in, the hook came out, and the Islanders suffered a tough loss. So, that's on them. It's not for the Canucks to worry about. But that, to me, was the main reason that the Vancouver Canucks won, was they had a massive edge in goal. Their goalie made saves where the other guy didn't. But you're right. There are better teams, more offensive teams, teams with better finishers and bigger weapons than the New York Islanders, who Bo Horvat leads the team with 49 points. So it's a dangerous way to play. If you're going to open it up like that and run into Edmonton or Colorado or somebody else, they're going to make you pay, without a doubt. Winnipeg waiting on Sunday, right? Those are the types of teams that absolutely will crush the Canucks if they give up that many grade A opportunities. So, but this is sort of where the Canucks are. They're damned if they do and damned if they don't. We were on them because they were playing so lock it down tight and trying to protect leads, and that blew up in their face. And here they open it up a little bit. They're giving up, but again, it is nice to see them score and to see them spread some scoring. I'm not expecting that they're going to get a ton of offense out of Derek Forbort and Teddy Bluger down the stretch here, but hey, it worked last night, and that was the path to victory.
Jeff, Forbort has 2 in his last 10, plus that saucer pass to Lacrimaki. Okay,
Look out.
Talk about getting aggressive, and Derek Forbort is playing that to the letter. Ratu, I was telling Blake before the show, you know that internet meme with the guy at a table and I believe yada changed my mind? Mm-hmm. Jeff, I believe they waited a beat or two too late in getting Aatu Ratu up here and playing, given who is missing. A word or two about the rookie Finn and his big night.
Yeah, well, I think we had this conversation a couple of probably 5 games ago where they weren't winning faceoffs and they were starting to, again, they were struggling to score goals. And we thought, why not? He's your leading scorer down in Abbotsford. And so ultimately, even though he's at the fringes of the lineup, they may have missed a bit of an opportunity there. Good to see. Doesn't figure in the scoring on the opening goal, but that goal doesn't happen without him getting in on the forward check. He was aggressive, he was physical, takes his man, separates the puck, and then gets it around the side boards, and ultimately the shot deflected by Kiefer Sherwood. So Ratu playing between Sherwood and Dakota Joshua, and I thought Dakota Joshua was invested last night and physical. I like that line an awful lot. And then to see Ratu again rewarded going to the net, but staying at the net front. And there's a price to pay there, but he's a big body. He should be able to find his way to the front of the net, and was parked there and able to redirect the Marcus Paterson shot. So, yeah, it wasn't a night where he dominated in faceoff, but context matters here. The Islanders are the best faceoff team in the National Hockey League. So, they've got guys down the middle, and whether you're facing Pajot or Horvat, whoever, all those guys have success in the circle. And Ratu held his own. He was 5-5. It wasn't like he got demolished in the faceoff circle. We're just used to seeing him win more than his share. But certainly that is an attribute that he can bring to this mix. And, I think one of the things right now, guys, is they don't have any extra healthy forwards, right? With Paterson and Höglander leaving the road trip. And so all these young guys up from Abbotsford, they know that they're playing. It's not about being on the NHL roster and am I going to be in tonight? Maybe I'll get to take the warm-up. They know that they're playing, and in turn, they understand the desperate situation for the Canucks, and so I think it's kind of raised the level of performance Even Nils Höglander, who isn't going to be a big producer, but had picked up 3 assists in the last couple of games prior. A point here, a point there. It all matters when you're chipping and chasing and trying to make up ground in the standings. So, a shout to Manny Malhotra and the work down in Abbotsford. How many years, guys, over the last decade have the Canucks called up players who maybe they've earned it with their performance in the American Hockey League, but when they got to the NHL, they weren't ready to contribute. And the Canucks right now are running with 4 forwards and DPD, who spent most of the season down on the farm as well. These guys aren't just wearing the uniform, they're contributing. So, good on what's going on down in Abbotsford.
And we've mentioned that several times this year. We were seeing development on the farm. We were getting that push from below that was so absent for so many years. And I think you're spot on about these kids knowing they're going to play, Jeff. Ratu said last night in the post game, he thought, okay, what if I score a goal tonight against my old team? He already seeing himself out there visualizing doing constructive things.
They've fashioned a full season of center ice out of the AHL guys. Nils Höglander, Max Sasson, and Aatu Räty have now played together. They've if you make them into a snowball, you've got a season's worth out of those guys.
82,
and you got like 25 points out of those guys, or 20 points out of those guys,
which isn't bad. My follow up on Räty, Jeff. Is he a Pius Suter replacement at third line center next year if Suter walks in free agency, or is that a bridge too far for you? Too much too soon?
Well, I think it would be difficult to replace. Suter's going to wind up with 40 points. I think that might be asking a little too much of Aatu Räty at this stage, but I think the Canucks, and again, this was a guy that was projected as a high draft pick, fell in his draft year. We know the backstory there, but there were times where people thought that this guy was going to be a big-time point producer in the National Hockey League. I think he's rounded out his game. The face-offs we know, he kind of profiles as a guy that could turn into a penalty killer. Again, at the level that Pius Suter is doing those things right now, probably asking too much for next season. But I think the Canucks have to look at it sort of through that lens a little bit, that if Pius Suter does elect to walk and chase the money and go elsewhere, somebody's got to slide in and take those minutes, and I think that they believe that Aatu Räty can make the jump, big off season, put in the work to up the foot speed a little bit, and I think that there is a path to him being not just an everyday player, but a contributor for the Vancouver Canucks. So, I think on some level, you can paint it that way, that maybe he is the Pius Suter in waiting if, in fact, they have to replace Pius Suter.
Depth scoring has been there for sure. And guys like Besser obviously and Sherwood have stepped up. 3-point night for Kiefer Sherwood, for heaven's sakes. In the mindset of sustainability, though, on getting this win streak to extend beyond what it is already. And this might surprise some people. Jake DeBrusk's on a 3-game point streak. Connor Garland's got points in back-to-back games. And yet, I'm still left wanting more here, Jeff. These are 2 guys that are near the top of the Canucks scoring leaders, and it feels like while everybody else has raised their game, I would like something more from those 2 in particular.
Yeah, and I would say DeBrusk probably a little more than Garland, but not to excuse Connor Garland, who ends up getting credit for the game-time goal there the other night in Jersey, and DeBrusk had a hand in it and picked up the assist on the Forbort goal as well. But you're right, to think that the Vancouver Canucks have picked up points in 3 of the 4 out on the road trip. I think, what have they got? 4 wins in their last 6 hockey games. It's crunch time. They don't have an inch to give right now. And yet Jake DeBrusk's gone 7 without scoring a goal. Like, up until this road trip, he was their leading goal scorer, and Brock Besser has closed the gap there. Add it to the long list of things that sort of surprised about this Vancouver Canucks team, and it's this Jenga puzzle, right? Like, you just keep pulling pieces out and think that the whole tower is going to collapse, and Paterson's out, and Höglander's out, and Chytil didn't make the road trip, and Jake DeBrusk hasn't been terribly productive, certainly on the goal-scoring front. And yet here they are, and they're still there, keeping St. Louis and Calgary honest in this race, and we'll see what happens. Ultimately, 10 games to go now, still an uphill climb, and I think a huge part of it, guys, is a power play that when Quinn Hughes was out of the lineup, it somehow found ways to get it done. It wasn't always pretty, but pucks wound up in the back of the net, sort of at the same average rate that they have all season long. And now on this road trip, they're not only are they 0 for 7, but they give up the shorty last night. They're a net -1. So again, another thing that really doesn't add up or make a whole lot of sense is that they're having some success. All of a sudden, they're becoming 5-on-5 world beaters, but there are moments in almost all these games. Now, last night they only had the one power play, but they're going to need some power. If they're going to get where they ultimately want to go, the power play is going to have to find a way. It's just simple as that. And Jake DeBrusk has been highly effective on the power play. Hasn't been as good 5-on-5 all season long, and certainly since Christmas, it's been a struggle for Jake to score at 5-on-5. So, yeah, if there's one guy that I'm sort of circling here, we know that he's streaky. But 7 is too long. You got to get that streak moving back in the other direction now.
What's more likely, the St. Louis Blues stub their toe and fall back to earth a little bit here, or the Minnesota Wild continue to lose and the Canucks are chasing the Wild instead?
Yeah, I don't see the Blues slowing down. I just think they seem so locked in right now. They've got 2 top lines that really are going. They're going to get Colton Parayko back at some point. They're not overrunning Jordan Binnington since Four Nations. Joel Hofer stepped in and they haven't suffered losses when they've gone to their backup goaltender. They get Nashville again. Like, it just seems every time you look at the schedule, it's St. Louis facing Nashville. They've got Pittsburgh coming up here. I think Detroit So I don't see the Blues slowing down, and I do think that St. Louis will pass Minnesota. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because if you then start to focus your attention on the Minnesota Wild, they've got to go out east and make one of those trips through the New York area. They've got Washington coming up. Like, you can say, hey, Minnie's got a bit of a tough schedule. But Minnesota also has Calgary on its schedule. And that's one of those things when you're chasing 2 teams and they play head-to-head, somebody's winning, and that doesn't work in the Canucks' favor. So crazy if you allow your mind to wander. There is still a head-to-head between the Canucks and the Minnesota Wild on, April the 12th? Like, could you imagine if the bottom really, truly did fall out on Minnesota? The thing about Minnesota is Filip Gustafsson, when he's in net, he has been terrific for them. I think there's enough goaltending there that they will find a way to, even if they win 3 more games, and Minnesota's got San Jose, they've got Anaheim on their schedule. Yes, it makes for a great conversation, but I think in the end, I think the Canucks will be chasing Minnesota because I think St. Louis will pass the Wild, but it just, again, feels like it's probably a bridge too far at this stage. Without the Canucks going, 8-2? I think they would minimum of 8-2 over the final 10 to truly make it interesting.
Well, a big one tomorrow against the Jackets. Columbus is really scuffling here, 2-7-1 in their last 10, 2 back of a playoff spot, but 3 teams to jump. They do have games in hand, so playoff stakes on both sides of the ledger again tomorrow, Jeff, and we know you'll have fantastic post-game coverage on RinkWide. Thank you for this, and we will catch up on Monday.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what a game between the Canucks and the Blue Jackets look like. Zach Werenski basically carrying the same workload that Quinn Hughes is here. There's only 1 puck out there, and they both love to have it on their stick. So a couple of former Michigan guys, some real similarities. The season that Werenski is having, he's been all-world for the Blue Jackets, and we know what Quinn Hughes has meant. And after a subpar performance by his own standards, I would think that Quinn would be motivated to bounce back and show that was a one-off. So, high stakes continue here, and we shall see how the Canucks fare against CBJ on Friday.
Norris showdown. Let's keep that cannon quiet. I hate that cannon. Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
In this segment, a presentation of Resurrection Spirits, who have partnered up with Sick Harrison Price to create the S&P Gin. Can you think of a more perfect solution to spring and summer cocktail queries? What should we make today? An S&P G&T? Absolutely. And if you use the code SNP, that's S&P, you get $5 off right now, which effectively goes towards delivery if you choose to go that route. Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley, $10, it's at your door. Go check it out, resurrectionspirits.ca, and get, for a limited time only, your S&P Gin.
Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for the Province and Post Media, and he is gracing us with his presence today in the Nation Network studio. Nice to see you again. I know you'll be in on Sunday with Jeff for RinkWide after this big game against the Winnipeg Jets. We got the Blue Jackets before that.
They're all big games, Matt.
Well,
Well,
meaningful games in March,
winning the big games.
How many? We've been sort of tossing this around. How many losses are they allowed?
Is it 3?
Well, I would have said that for sure a few weeks ago, but now with the way things are going,
I hate this game because it doesn't account for the overtime and shootout losses, right? Like, as much as we'd like to make it neat and tidy over the final 10, there will probably be some overtime and
The
shootout.
team that's lost in NHL.
let's put a point total. Does 94 get them in?
I think so.
Really? Okay.
Well, because really, to me, it's St. Louis. Like, how much does St. Louis do? St. Louis has won 7 in a row. So are they really going to keep?
I don't think they're that good. I think St. Louis will have a blip here.
They're on a heater, but this is the thing I wrote yesterday. I was just thinking about this. It's like, okay, what do you actually need to do here? And yeah, I kind of came to the conclusion like St. Louis should get to 93 points. I really think they should.
I like to think of it in losses terms because I like to tell the fans, okay, if the Canucks lose, how sad should you be? How many get out of jail cards do they have to put down here?
How sad should you be on a given night?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
if they lose to, let's assume dangerous that they beat CBJ, but then they go out and lose versus the Jets. Do you just say that no, they are allowed to lose that game? How many more are they allowed to lose?
They have 10 games left.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. They need, that's why I said they're allowed 3, I think, because 7 wins gets them to 94 points.
Yeah.
And that's, well, I mean, I'm not saying it will get them in, but it could get them in.
And who'd have thought that it wouldn't? Like that would, like 3 weeks ago, 94 points, I would indelible ink on the dotted line. That for sure gets you in. Now?
Yeah. Well, the moment we started, all the projections started saying it's going to be 91 points.
Right, yeah.
I was just
so
like,
low.
No. We've had this before. We've seen this show before. There's always someone who gets hot at the end, and right now maybe St. Louis is peaking too early, but certainly they're putting themselves in a position.
91's going to work in the East, by the way.
Someone gets hot at the end. Why not the Vancouver Canucks? Yes. And especially with Thatcher Demko back in form, Patrick.
Because Pius Suter's the top center.
Well, so this is how I wrote it the other day. I said, do the Canucks, do they need Elias Pettersson to make the playoffs? And it's not so much because of who he could be, it's because of who he isn't, which is that he's still better than Nils Höglander and still better than Teddy Bluger and still better than Aatu Räty, despite his excellent play last night. Mm-hmm. The reality is that Paterson, at least his defensive game, takes you to a better place, and the play ends up at the right end of the ice, even if his season hasn't been that good. So it's very difficult without him.
Is everybody raising their game, though, because those guys are gone? Like, can you have your cake and eat it too? Can everybody step up and not do he's back, we can let down now?
Well, I mean, Kiefer Sherwood refound his way back to where he had been. I don't think anybody thought he'd be that guy forever. But, Kiefer Sherwood has been a great AHL scorer. He has the talent to put the puck in the net. So last night's game was not surprising. The start of the
style games, too. St. Louis and the Island. He was terrific in 2 of these closer playoff style games.
And I have to say, I mean, he didn't score, but I think Dakota Joshua's found his way back to where he needs to be. He's not putting the puck as much, but he's forechecking, he's winning battles, he's creating things. There's enough bits there. It's not cohesive because in the end, like I said, their center depth is...
Although Ratu's been good there.
Ratu's fine, but he played
honestly,
10 minutes.
Patrick,
Matt, he played 10 minutes last night. So, which is fine.
But
he's the fourth line center.
Created a goal and scored a goal.
Nice.
Frankly, they waited too long to get Ratu up and in the lineup, given the dearth of center icemen, given the lack of offense. I want to see Ratu play more.
Sure. But yes, but at the end of the day, right now, the way they played him, he's still playing as a fourth line center. So there's not even a replacement of Paterson. He's replacing Oman's minutes, who's replacing Bluger's minutes, who's replacing Pedersen's minutes. That inherently.
Well, he's better than Oman and should be playing.
I agree, but I'm just in terms of deployment right now. I mean, even then, what are we talking about? You have to replace your number one center's minutes, and that's no matter how bad your number one center's been, it's not your number one center.
How much of your paycheck are you putting on the line that Elias Pettersson is in the lineup, first home game back, April the 2nd?
I have no insight into what is going on there, so I don't know.
How has that been just
bizarre?
Put under lock and key.
Are you fearful that Chytil is real bad? like season,
or they just kid gloving
worries
this.
about career.
Well, I mean, when we last talked to Rick Tocchet about it, so again, this is the frustration of not being there. But when we last talked to Rick Tocchet about it last week, he was trying to put on a brave face. Let's put it that way.
He's feeling good. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't even
feeling
he
better
wasn't
today.
He's feeling
which
better
is
today.
Different than,
but it was pretty clear that the recovery is a 1 week. If you do everything right and everything works for you, it's a 1 week deal. But I don't think was any chance they were going to do that, and certainly we haven't seen any suggestion he's flying in to rescue the team. But yeah, that's the other point, is that the other guy. I mean, even though long term he's probably a third line center, he's not there.
He's coming
and
on
he's
2
played
weeks
well
too. He's coming on
he's
2
coming
weeks.
on 2 weeks.
Saturday will be 2 weeks.
Yeah, so you have huge questions from both of those guys. Höglander, I mean, I don't know what happened to him. He just basically disappeared. But I was told it's going to be a while, whatever it is. So Höglander is, again, he's had a good sort of last month, but there are guys you can fiddle with in this lineup in that area. But your centers are what matter, and they don't have the centers right now, as well as Pius Suter has been playing.
Okay, let's finish up with personnel because I do want to get on to Rick Tocchet. Elias Paterson.
Yeah. Fourth fastest man in the NHL.
That's right? Quite a burst of speed. Canucks defenseman, man.
Whew.
In 100-meter, game on. Lewis versus Johnson. Elias and Mancini. So what's with the do-si-do there? Have they not settled on someone? Do they like the idea of fresh people? Do they not trust young junior Petey on the right side too often? Or as much? What's going on with the?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. Is that they like both players, but not enough to say one or the other. And I mean, Mancini. Everyone talks about how strong he is, right? They think of him as the strongest guy on the team, and he plays a smart game. Paterson, I think, is a better kind of all-round player, and we certainly saw the back check last night.
And no wilting lily in
and I would say,
himself.
to his credit, he is such a lesson on what to look for when you're looking at a young player coming up. Does he go for it right away? Does he have any hesitation? And he hasn't had any hesitation.
True.
The comparison is a guy like Guillaume Brisebois, who came in kind of I'm going to play it a bit safe, and I'm going to, which is fine, but that doesn't keep you in the league. What keeps you in the league is being brave and bold, and that's why Paterson's there. And Mancini, I suppose, to a certain degree, is the same story. I mean, he's just been highly competent since he showed up. So, I mean, the interesting one, of course, is what happens when Tom Willander comes.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to ask you, by the end of the season, the Canucks going to have
Tom
three.
Willander doesn't.
No, but I'm just saying. But
he's
they
gonna play.
They're going to get him in the lineup.
Yeah.
They will try to get him in the lineup at some point.
You're not playing him in a game with playoff stakes.
We'll see.
We'll see. I think they do.
I think, Matt, you're right.
So
Instinctually, you're right.
I'll put dinner on it right now. Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote are not going to drop Tom Willander into a game when they are fighting for a playoff spot if Junior Petey and Mancini are healthy.
If the manager has promised that they will burn that year, yeah, they will. It happens.
Can't see it. Sorry.
Every game from here on in, Matt, has
You're
playoff
and
consequences.
And look, I understand where you're coming from. You're quite scarred. You are accustomed to college players dropping in and getting the look-see because
It's
they
not
can't,
look-see.
and because the
not
Vancouver
look-see.
Canucks have promised that. And let's face it, the game doesn't matter anyways in March or April. But these are games of consequence. I realize he's a good prospect. I realize he has done well in 2 years of college hockey, but you're not playing him over two guys who have been good NHL defensemen this year in a playoff stakes game. There's just no way.
It
Well,
has
but that's
nothing,
what I'm saying.
It
What
has
if there's
nothing.
no-
It
what
has
if there's no
nothing.
stakes?
It has nothing to do with look-see. It's contractual
This is
negotiation. It's we're gonna make sure. Don't
Okay.
worry. We're gonna burn that year for you right now.
No. You can't promise that. You can't promise that.
But they do.
Yeah.
No, they promise that when they're playing out the string
Yeah. Well,
or when they're secure in a playoff spot. They don't promise that when they're right there at the bar and every 2 points could make the difference between in or
yeah.
out.
Yes. I mean, that part's absolutely the case. I guess I'm saying is I'm going back to Blake's original question. So once they've lost 4 times.
If they lose 4 times, we'll have the discussion, and I'm sure Tom will play. All right. Okay, Rick Tocchet. The Philadelphia Flyers job is open.
Yes.
He is, of course, an ex-Flyer. Mike Sullivan, our old friend, former Canucks assistant, may be done in Pittsburgh there after winning 2 Stanley Cups. Tocchet, an ex-Penguin, an ex-Penguins coach. What are the chances Rick Tocchet is coaching in Pennsylvania next year?
Well, if you say Pennsylvania, I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's not 0. I am very skeptical of the Flyers part, because if I sit back and look at what he's looking at here, and what you would be looking at in Philly, there is no reason to say that Philly is further along in their project than the Canucks are. And there are certainly things I know he does like here, but he also, I think, has questions about here as well, which is why we're all talking about this.
What would those be?
Well, looking at his number 1 center, what is Petey's? What is the future for Petey? How does he play? Is he able to play out the season? Where is that? What do they expect from him in the offseason? Will he be able to deliver on that? What are they going to do about filling the hole in the middle? Like, Miller had to go. I think they all recognize that. But, like, who is the new guy? How do they do that? It's going to be hard. Obviously, they missed an opportunity with the Besser situation. It's hard to imagine them finding a trade for him at this point, and it's more than likely he's going to go, I think, although you never know. You need a winger. You need a centerman. What's the plan? And I think that is more than anything the things that he will be looking at. Because, listen, I think he's enjoyed it. He likes it here. He likes Vancouver. I think he likes the people involved. He knows the bosses. He likes them.
Is Petey a roadblock?
And here's the other thing. I think a lot of coaches chafe under the microscope that is this market. And I think he loves it. I think being in a hockey milieu and being able to talk hockey with as many people as he can, both in the building and outside of the building, I think is the sweet spot.
He's a hockey evangelist, is what I call him.
Yeah.
He likes to preach the religion of hockey. That's why he enjoys talking to us.
Only it didn't work for Torts here.
No.
Willie, it was Alain, Rick.
Yep.
Those sorts of guys who are comfortable in their own skin, comfortable that they're NHL head coaches and will be elsewhere. Don't feel a need that they have to micromanage everything around them and that it has to go their way. Those sorts of coaches work in Canadian markets.
Heart of Hearts.
Paquin's a great show.
Heart of Hearts, is Petey a roadblock for him, though?
I don't know if roadblock's the word, but it's certainly a big thing that he is looking at to try to understand what is the road ahead. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Because it's been a difficult year, right? And he's had to look at this guy struggle, and
he needs to believe that he can lean on somebody.
That's the word. Thank you.
You know what
he needs to believe that he can lean on this guy, and that this guy. I mean, we've heard it. The reason why he talks about practice so much is he's thinking more in broader terms in terms of preparation, right? He wants to know this guy has learned to prepare himself in the way that Quinn Hughes has, and to a lesser degree, probably you could say Brock Besser has, right? Like, there are guys in his stable who have recognized that what they were doing is not the maximum of what they're able to do. And that is the coach's job, right? The coach's job, and he and I have talked about this before, the coach's job is to take the player to a place that they didn't know they could get to, because that few of us know where we can get to.
And Hughes, Besser, Garland, Suter, Sherwood, Bluger, Höglander, Joshua. Look at the number of players who improved here under this coaching staff.
As weird as the season's
I know
been,
his
that's still
system
true.
gets a lot of flack, and deservedly so, but there are hockey players who are better professionals on the Vancouver Canucks today because of Rick Tocchet.
Well, and look at last season. Like, last season was not an outlier. Last season was, I mean, yes, admittedly, everything going right, but also the players were at their peak. And that was how they thought things would. I mean, I don't think they thought things would go exactly as they would, but they thought the system was going to work because they thought Miller and they thought Paterson would continue to be the guys that they're supposed to be.
Let me ask you,
can I just throw this at him? You know who Rick needs to help supplement, buffer, support, make it work with Elias Pettersson? Bo Horvat.
Oh, gosh.
If Sidney Crosby is not available, and people tell me Sidney Crosby is not available, and is not going to tire of the losing and not come to a revelation that one of the greatest players in the history of the game really shouldn't end his career with 10 meaningless years in a B market. If Sidney is not available, Bo Horvat.
I have a hard time imagining him coming back.
Why?
I think he was disappointed about how things ended here.
But this would be validation and vindication.
I suppose.
They've finally wised up and chose me.
Yeah, I suppose.
You don't think so?
I
think Bo is
you never say never.
preeminent professional.
My instinct is no, but you never say never. Sure. Yes, absolutely. A massive professional. Anytime we've seen him when he's come back, he's been the same old Bo.
And I think if Rutherford and Alvin just go, hey, Bo, we're sorry, we got it wrong. Some things were said. Water under the bridge.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's forge forward. I think Bo would sit down at a press conference at Rogers Arena and say, it's good to be home.
So it's Trevor Linden part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that was different management groups.
Yeah, that's true.
This is different. Why did it take 12, 15 games for the team to win puck battles and be the first to pucks again? They go 6-1-1 going into the break.
Yeah.
You think they figured it all out. And then it looked, they weren't, but it looked like they were trying to get their coach fired. That's the kind of effort levels that we were seeing. So why did it take so long for them to re-find that give a bleep?
Can I just note the segue here, Mike? We were gone from big, broad topics like who's going to coach the Canucks? Will it be Rick Tocchet? Can you bring Bo back as a second-line centerman? And he wants to talk puck battles.
No.
We're playing style.
No, we're talking
belief
about
in the coach.
We're talking about belief in the coach. If the coach is so good, why did they abandon his plan for 12 to 15 games at the most important part of the season? That's coaching. Why did they abandon it?
Answer his question, then I want to ask you about the dry scrapes at Rogers Arena.
I'm not asking about a post-game comment. Let's have our own conversation. He's lost.
I often am with the two of you.
Overachieving?
You two sometimes get on a wavelength that I'm just not there.
I'm sorry, Matt.
I don't vibe with these guys.
If this
vibe
coach
together.
is all that, why did they abandon him?
It's a good question, and it is something to. I think it's a good question because you can talk about overall mentality or the core or whatever, but like that hasn't always been the case. Like it's just there's a get up for the game period for the group, and I don't listen. I think we forget how bad that road trip at the beginning of January was. Remember when they lost in Carolina but then beat the Leafs? But like there was some awful, uninspired, drag me into the dirt, and I think that was because of the festering Miller Paterson situation. And there were some of that, honestly, Blake, I think was just bad luck. There was a lot. There were good things happening. I mean, our sort of emotional reaction was, well, this isn't really that great. But a lot, like they were just playing really boring hockey.
Yeah,
which was in many ways kind of the plan because they were trying not to give away much.
It leaves you open though to a bad break.
Yes,
meaning you lose a hockey game.
And they simply weren't scoring. They weren't finishing, and there were elements of the shot creation that was not good enough, and that was frustrating the coach. You're absolutely right.
The first 4 games out of the break. Goals for column 1, 1, 2, 2.
Well, and look at the
hard to win.
But and look at where they're at right now. I mean, their power play hasn't scored in 4 games, right? Like this has been a team that has had a hard time all season putting it all together, and that's why they're in the spot they're in.
Not many perfect games.
So, which is the context of the coach, right? Like, and.
That's what he's in charge of.
I would say credit to Rick Tocchet on this because he has been open about it. He says, in the end, it's on me to find the answers. I'm here to help these players find where they need to be. What would you like to say, Matt?
Can I ask an existential question?
Sure.
Does Thatcher Demko save their season?
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, they can't run him into the ground, right? Like, we know that both the goalies need the right amount. But the amazing thing was before he got hurt, he was playing great. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to me, the question now is, okay, what is going on with Lankinen? Tocchet insists he could have backed up. Well, he didn't.
I like if this is on the up and up.
There's nothing to see there.
If this is on the up and up, I actually like the thing. Like the chances of us needing you are lowish. and Artie Sheeloff.
So get ready for Friday.
Get ready for Friday. I don't mind it.
And this is something is something that, we've been wondering if this would happen. It's the Major League Baseball thing where you send the starter out to the next city. Like they don't even stay with the team anymore. And
right.
So is that, which in a way is, if that's what it is, and that's entirely possible. But certainly, the notion that he was, quote, banged up.
What I want to know, was he in the building or was he in the hotel room in bed watching the game? Part of me wants that to be.
Kevin, what's your routine? Yeah, I don't know.
Just don't even prepare for the game. Don't even bother putting on a suit and coming to the bus. Just stay in bed with your feet up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mind that. I
didn't watch the post-game video, so I can't tell you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for
listening. Got you some Resurrection Spirit swag, too.
I should put it on. So.
Yep. Well, that would have been the move before the interview.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Poor coaching.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, and if you have your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Harrison Price rate. Some blackout date supply based on availability. We are a day late in recapping Blake's Safeway My NHL picks, and I'm absolutely shocked at that because
we're not late. Any day is a good day to talk about my brilliance.
Well, that's it. I would have thought that would have been top of agenda for you yesterday because it was another winning week for Blake Price. 4-1 again, 15-5 over 4 weeks, and he's already winning great prizes from Safeway.
The only thing I regret is that in the digital era, I cannot fill up my bathtub with Scene Plus points in order to take a bath. Because I would like that to be a Instagrammable moment, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We keep hitting these thresholds. As soon as I get to 25 correct picks, which is, I don't know, 3 weeks max.
3 weeks, the way this is going, right? I mean, unless you go perfect over the next 2.
At that point, if I spend $10 at Safeway, I'll get an additional 1,000 Scene Plus points. Just for being prescient.
Mm-hmm. All right. What Canucks was the only game you lost last week? Is that correct?
That is correct. Another 4-1 week. Took the Capitals over the Flyers. The only thing I missed was the Blues and Canucks game.
And narrowly, too, right?
I mean, betting against the Bruins is always a good idea these days. I don't think they're in the National Hockey League anymore.
They got their lunch handed to them by Anaheim.
Kane, again, betting against the Sharks is pretty safe, and the Penguins are folding down the stretch a little bit as well. So
they can't get a safe.
It's, at this point in the season, this isn't week 1 of like the National Football League where anything can happen. At this point, you know what these teams are.
Yes, you do.
And you're not betting against the spread or anything like that. You're just picking winners.
And some of them are already on the golf course in their minds.
Download the Safeway app today. Click My NHL Picks. That's what it's called. My NHL Picks. It's just straight to the point here as to what to do. And every game that you get right gets you closer to more Scene Plus points, which you can, in turn, of course, unlock cheaper groceries, cheaper food. And who doesn't like the sound of that? Download the Safeway app today.
Opening day in Major League Baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays with Jose Barrios versus the Baltimore Orioles with Zach Eflin, and Seattle at home as well to start the year. Logan Gilbert, your opening day starter, versus Luis Severino of the Athletics. Just the Athletics. ESPN's Buster Olney reporting the Jays made a final last-minute offer to Vladdy Guerrero on an extension before the season, but the sides are still apart. And did you see what the New York Mets are doing this season?
No.
So first of all, the New York Mets with one of the most iconic mascots out there, Mr. Met.
Sure.
Right? Well, they have jumped on the mascot races bandwagon. Of course, this once upon a time began in Washington with the ex-president's races. We have the sushi races here at Nat Bailey Stadium. The Mets are going to have the 5 borough mascot races at Citi Field this year for the 5 boroughs of New York City. Brooklyn is represented by a pizza slice, New York-style pizza, right? Manhattan represented by a skyscraper, stands to reason. Staten Island represented by a ferry, Staten Island Ferry. Very good boat trip. I know a thing or two about boat trip. Very good float from the island over to Manhattan. The Bronx is represented by a giraffe. Bronx Zoo. It's an angry-looking giraffe.
Okay.
And you do wonder whether the Mets are poking a little bit here at the Yankees who play in the Bronx, right? You could have chosen any animal from the Bronx Zoo. They chose
Kind of an awkward one.
a giraffe, yeah. And then their home borough, Queens, represented by a subway car. How boring and nondescript must you be as a borough that you get assigned the subway
Your personality is public transit.
car? Exactly. A vehicle that will deliver you out of that borough and into better boroughs.
Right.
Although I suppose the ferry does the same. As one commentator noted, what are the chances the Bronx comes in last every time? It would be a hilarious troll by the Mets. Here. Wasabi. Took years to win.
I'll say this. In this political firestorm that we're living in right now, watch the borough fights get political. It's going to get nasty there. You cheering against sushi at Nat Bailey.
Yes.
It's not political.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, everybody loves wasabi, but it's not truly.
If soy wins, soy sauce wins.
You'll get over it.
Whitecaps at TFC Saturday. That's an 11:30 a.m. start for us, everybody. And if they manage to draw, they are guaranteed to be leading the MLS West. After the weekend, Austin and LAFC could tie them at 12 points with wins and a Vancouver loss. Andreas Cubas was terrific for Paraguay the other night in a 2-2 draw against Colombia. He will be available for selection.
I've got everybody available except for Garland and DeBrusk, the injured players. So, yeah, everybody's back from their national team duty. I'm sure they're a little tired, but especially guys like Cubas who have to travel such great distances. But he's also buoyed by, you're right, some unbelievable results. Apparently everybody down in South America is saying, watch out for Paraguay. So Andres Cubas could be taking part in this World 2020.
Yeah.
Who knows? He could get a home game here at BC Place, depending on the draw.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. And the Athletic reporting that it was Alphonso Davies' decision to play against the United States on Sunday, that the discomfort he had after the Mexico match was in his hamstring, so not the ACL that he tore, and that is going to keep him out for months here. We brought you the story yesterday. Much protestation from his agent about Jesse Marsh's decision to play Davies in a game that, a third-place game, not all that meaningful.
Hot take. Alphonso Davies has a new agent in about a year's time.
Yeah, but he's carried this guy with him since Edmonton.
I know.
This is a childhood friend from Edmonton, and sometimes that shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron Rodgers says he'll sit out the 2025 NFL season and see what 2026 brings. Narrator's voice. No more interest in Aaron Rodgers.
The same. It'll be the same.
Well, I just, and I feel very vindicated, Blake, because as you know, I was on the Aaron Rodgers kind of a phony train many, many years ago. Like, he turns 42 in December. So he thinks, don't really love the idea the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to mentor a young quarterback in Minnesota. I'll just hold out, and at 42, I'll just sit this one out, and at 42, the phone is going to ring.
Did the New York Giants choose the right over-the-hill quarterback? Will Wilson be a better choice than Aaron Rodgers?
Honestly, I would have more confidence in winning a game with Aaron Rodgers under center than Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
But it's
just
what
it.
you invite into your locker room and into
Yes.
your team culture when you have Aaron Rodgers.
And winning
there.
one game, I would go with Rodgers. I don't
Yeah.
know that Rodgers can stay healthy for the entire season.
Yeah, well, they also have Jameis there as well.
Yes.
So they've gone with a couple of veteran quarterbacks who have seen better days, and that has some wondering whether they're still going to take a quarterback with the third overall. I shouldn't say still. Whether they're going to take a quarterback with the third overall pick, whether quarterback is going to be a later round priority for them, or whether they're just going to pop on Shedeur Sanders, Dion's kid. There's also some rumblings. Maybe Dak Prescott could be on the move to Cleveland, which would mean, does Cleveland trade their high pick to Dallas, who takes Shedeur? Anyways,
Cleveland just going
it's
to keep on
already
trying
been-
this.
Well, it's all. I'll say this: it's already been a really fun offseason of trades in the NFL, and of course, the Seahawks front and center with the DK Metcalf and Geno Smith deals. I don't think we're done yet. I think we're going to see some other big names. Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver in San Francisco. There's rumblings about him. I think we're going to see some more meat on the bone trades around the NFL draft next month. Ian Kennedy of the Hockey News reporting PWHL expansion watch, expecting 2 new teams, perhaps in time for next season. Of course, the PWHL went on that takeover tour to gauge interest in other markets, and with a crowd of 19,000, Vancouver set an attendance record there.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy reports the smoke is out west, where Vancouver, Seattle, Denver, and or Edmonton are candidates, and says the league prefers existing NHL markets. So those 4 out west here may have an edge over Quebec City. As of right now, the furthest west the league goes is Minnesota, state of hockey. And, Minnesota was added to the inaugural group because of the strong hockey culture, both men's and women's in that state. For some, if you're going to Denver, you're going to Vancouver, okay, now you've introduced more expensive and lengthy travel into the league. Do you have the economic underpinning for it? And, of course, if it's 2 teams and not all 4 in one shot.
You got to create a division. You got to create a 4-team division.
Mm-hmm.
Make it worth their while. Reduce their travel so that they've got a lot of close games themselves. They can play,
Yep.
3 times against each other.
Well, that's why I wonder if Vancouver and Seattle are the places here. It's a bus trip. Come on
Seattle
out.
Just so swamped with sports. I almost wonder
Now,
if you,
great support for the WNBA team
Yeah.
in Seattle. It's been a good market for them. But, yes, you're right.
And I know they said, NHL-ready markets. I wonder if you bend the rules and go Portland.
Wow.
Because they support the Thorns very well.
They do. Where Christine Sinclair played most of her professional career.
So women's sports has a foothold already there. And, of course, their history with the Winterhawks has been a good one.
That said, if you prefer NHL, I get it. But, Quebec City is a pretty easy one to add to the mix. If you're already in Montreal, you're already in Boston.
And you get to claim the Quebec City Montreal rivalry that
Indeed.
no other sport can do right now outside of junior hockey.
Yeah. Poll question results from the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question on Wednesday. We asked you, does a trade for Bo Horvat this summer make sense for the Canucks? Massive voting on this, 2,700 votes. Blake, what did the people say?
They said no.
Correct. Percentage?
71.
55.
It was that close.
Yeah.
Why were you so offended
It's a
by that?
beloved ex-Canuck.
I know, but people like to turn the page sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our friends at the Hughes Sportscast. I think it makes sense. Second line center. Will it happen? Almost 0% chance. Yeah. It's a Hail Mary. Although, again, as we said yesterday, if Alvin says we're adding a second line center by trade or by free agency, there are a limited number of free agents that applies to. There are a limited number of top 2 centers that are going to be available in trade. So process of elimination, I think Bo is higher up the list than many. Colton for the Canucks, yes. For the Islanders, no. And again, this somewhat pivots on, is there going to be a managerial change in New York? Is there going to be a change of direction, a retool, a rebuild of some kind? Cole, this management team has had no problem admitting mistakes. The real question is, what would it take? And are we better off going after Barzal? I hear the Barzal shout. Local kid, great skater, forever hurt. And my understanding, Patrick Roy really likes Barzal. He doesn't make the final call there. Lume says Bo left because he was going to get a bad contract. Then he got said bad contract. Now we want him back? Pass. Well,
I don't think it's a terrible contract anymore.
$8.5 million that goes 6 more years and takes him to age 36. So you are paying him a little beyond when you would want to be paying him. But with a cap jump of $7 million this year and potential cap jumps in the subsequent 2 years, $8.5 million. If he can be a second line center for the next 3 or 4 years,
and then
isn't going to look all that terrible.
And then be a top third line center for the last couple of years. That's not the end of the world either.
Yep. Karam says 100%. Great player, great locker room guy, gets along with Quinn, Petey, and Besser, etc. Will be a good mentor for the younger guys too. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. 20 Canucks games have gone beyond regulation this year. A couple on Lawrence. There was no prospect involved in the Filip Hronek deal. It was Hronek and a 4th-round pick for first and second. There was a prospect, Atu Ratu, involved in the Bo Horvat deal, so I think he got a little confused there, as well as saying it was a cross-check from Duncan Keith, not a dirty elbow to the head of Daniel Sedin that kept him out of that playoff series in 2012.
We have an ancestral one from Basketball Phil when discussing BC athletes at March Madness. Avery Howell.
Yes.
Plays for Canada internationally. She's from Boise, but her mom's from Salmon Arm. She has dual citizenship.
Oh, okay. So I missed one.
Yeah.
And Blake accidentally muted himself yesterday.
It did. Big.
Although some of us wouldn't consider that an error. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be back.
Please do. Yeah, great to have you back. Missed you. Clearly. Here he is, live in the flesh. How about that? Thanks for joining us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms. Noon Pacific time. It will be 11 tomorrow to account for the early start in Columbus, so 11 a.m. on Friday. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about and keep it local.